Fast travel has been a core part of games for a very long time. It was first originated in Dragon Quest in 1986, with the teleport spell that would bring the player back to the castle. Its first major use, though, was in A Link to the Past, with the flute allowing the player to travel back to the signpost you had already discovered. Since then, it's been kind of kept and used again and again, and for good reason. By allowing the player to travel around the map so quickly, you can really cut down an unnecessary downtime in your game, which will always be a really big positive, as downtime is arguably one of the worst parts in any game. It's also a pretty fairly simple idea to put in games, right? Like, just allow the player to travel to locations they've already visited, and boom, you have a very good and simple system. Take Ocarina of Time as an example. The player can only travel to dungeon entrances, and only dungeons entrances they've actually been to, which at first glance might seem a bit restrictive, and it kind of is, but just because of the sheer size of the Ocarina of Time map and how it's not very big in the way it's laid out, it actually works out very well. Minish Cap improves on the system even more by allowing you to travel to Wind Crests, which are more plentiful, but first allow the player to explore to actually find them. This forces them to explore to actually end up finding the Wind Crest, but this also means the devs don't really have to worry about you missing important parts of the game, because you actually have to explore to find the Wind Crests. So if you actually end up finding one, the chances are you've explored enough of the area that the developers don't really have to worry about you not experiencing the exploration they put in place. But Dark Souls is a really interesting way of doing the system as an example. I actually think it's a pretty big improvement from Zelda. Allowing the player to travel to bonfires means the player won't really miss anything they've already found because they've already completed up to the checkpoint or bonfire. And it also gives so many more options to travel to. Like, seriously, the Wind Crests are a little bit too restrictive for my own liking, forcing you into a little bit more downtime. But this game gives you a lot more flexibility and cuts down on more unnecessary downtime. And in Dark Souls, there isn't a lot of it, but this just helps even more. Oblivion was the first game to really go with the modern kind of fast travel we see in a lot of games now. The player can travel to any locations they've already visited. It works well, but Elden Ring, I think, is one of the best games to actually do this. It only lets you travel the site of graces that you've already visited, gives you a lot of flexibility, pushes you to explore, and basically checks off all the bullet points I've already listed. So we just established that fast travel is a good system that cuts down on a lot of unnecessary parts in a lot of games, by allowing players to travel to locations they've already visited. But why on earth does it seem like games so consistently seem to mess up this simple mechanic? Bashing on Skyrim is probably my favorite hobby, so let's just start there, right? The fast travel system in Skyrim is, well, it's pretty good. It could perhaps maybe have less locations for you to fast travel to, but its core fast travel mechanics and just what it is pretty well. But Skyrim puts so much effort into the atmosphere and the world, and yet there is one mistake that outright makes these systems non-existent to certain players. The Carriage Man. This guy single-handedly incentivizes players to stay in town and not actually interact and explore the world. Removing this would just instantly make the game better, right? Because of this, you just travel between towns and you don't get that time going in the world and actually finding the settlements, which is one of the best parts of it. It is the best part of the game. The best part about Skyrim is actually exploring the open world. Like why are the locations marked on my map? They shouldn't be. Like, that's not the massive oversight of Skyrim, but it's a problem. Like Oblivion, right? You can outright immediately fast travel to the towns. You don't have to visit them. You can just fast travel. This means you're not going to interact with the world and explore. And just imagine how awesome it would be if you actually had to find the town. Like, how cool it would be to stumble across, like, I don't know, you found Whiterun by accident. That would be awesome. Out of all the games I've played, though, Enderal is the absolute worst case of this, like, I've ever seen. So the player can't fast travel at all, except for scrolls, which are hard to come by, cost a lot of gold, and are just really annoying. And this just creates so much downtime, as you constantly go through areas you've already spent time exploring. So instead of this, what do? Well, they let you travel to any one of the towers you haven't discovered. This not only doesn't push you to explore, but it creates downtime in the fact that I don't want to explore now, because if I do, I'm going to have to spend 20 minutes walking back to a tower to complete the quest that I finished 20 minutes ago. This just isn't a great system, and the even more frustrating thing it is, it's so easy to fix. Like, seriously, just give me an item that lets me teleport 2 towers. No, not even an item. Just let me teleport to only towers. That would still be a little bit annoying, but it would fix so much downtime that this game has, which is one of the worst parts about this game. And it's a pretty damn good game for the most part, but it's very annoying to spend 20 minutes walking for absolutely no reason. The Witcher 3 signpost system, I mean, it could be worse. It's probably a decent example, but you can only travel to signposts. The problem with this system is you have to be at a signpost to teleport to another signpost. I don't really think this is the worst system because there's enough signposts throughout the world, but it does kind of suck to spend 5 minutes just looking for a signpost, and it's a pretty simple fix as well. Like, just make it so I can teleport to signposts, and I don't have to be close to one, right? If I can only teleport to signposts, that's fine. Just don't make me need to be at a signpost to do that. That would cut out unnecessary downtime, and it would kind of keep the core of what I was talking about. The whole point of fast travel is to cut out unnecessary downtime, right? And it needs to also not stop the player from exploring. That's a key part of open world games. It works a lot better in linear worlds where you have to be at a location to travel to another location. It's still not the best, but it's not really a good system in open world games because of how much downtime it creates. Like, the entire system of fast travel is to remove downtime. Why is it creating downtime? But on the other side of this is the idea of immersion. And I probably would have a pretty different opinion on this matter if not for a certain game, Kingdom Come Deliverance. This is one of the most immersive games I've ever played, and the fast travel is just absolutely perfect in that game. Fast travel takes up time, which if you've played, you know is relatively important in Kingdom Come. It also costs hunger and energy depending on how far you are traveling. That's a pretty good system. On top of that, you can actually get random encounters as traveling between locations, which is not only interesting, but it adds to immersion. And if you compare this to something like Red Dead Redemption 2, where you have to set up camp, which makes you watch a cutscene, then you have to select the fast travel, then you actually have to travel to the location, there's just too many unnecessary steps in there for a system that can be simple and immersive at the same time, like Kingdom Come has done. It just takes more time, and a lot of systems like this feel really unnecessary. Enderall's kind of the same, where having to go to the towers doesn't really add immersion versus just fast traveling, because if you're looking at immersion, really all it is your character walking around the path. Pretty simple. So what's the conclusion from all of this? Well, create objects the player has to interact with, and when they interact with that object, they can now teleport to that object. But they don't have to be at that object. They can just teleport to them from anywhere, but they can't teleport anyway. In conclusion, though, in reality, just copy Breath of the Wild. It does the system best. Yeah, that's all I have to say. Bye.